Gotta pause for the picture. You know, if I like, did she freeze? No. Okay, we live over there, y'all. It take this little thumbnail, so y'all see me talking, then I automatically like pause real quick and seem like I froze. I possibly could have frozen, but most of the time I'm taking a thumbnail picture for YouTube. It always asks for that before it'll like let me hit the live button. Gotta take a little snapshot. So I guess when people are scrolling through YouTube, it's a thumbnail picture up there for the current video that's going. Where is my pen? Okay, y'all. But anyway, tonight, hey girl, hey. Happy Sunday, everybody. Ooh, we almost at day 200 of year 3, y'all. Hi, beautiful people. Y'all enjoyed y'all day yesterday? Saturday? Huh? I did. Alright, let's go ahead and get started here. Levine blessings. Okay, y'all. So let's go ahead and do the blessing before we get started, y'all. I say the blessing, not the blessing. I make it some. I said blessing because when I pulled it up, clearly it was right here. Front of my face. Yes, baby. I don't know. Do you want to go close it? Who left the microwave open? Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the Elohim of our fathers, has promised us in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our mighty one, he is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah, our mighty one, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah, our mighty one, as he has commanded us. All right, beautiful people. Let me set this for later. Lesson when I come back. So I gotta search for it. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and hop on over here to Isaiah 37 today. Alicia, y'all. Hey, Auntie. Shalom. Okay, y'all. Okay. Isaiah 37. Hezekiah. Hezekiah seeks Yahuwah's help. When King Hezekiah heard their report, he tore his clothes and put on burlap and went into the temple of Yahuwah. Okay, so remember yesterday, the kings that was coming up, the Assyrian kings, he sent his officials up and he said, look, this is what the king of Assyria says. Don't get all big-headed and think that your God can defeat us. Has any other nation's gods ever been able to defeat us? So don't you start thinking that y'all's going to come help you, right? So, and then it was like, listen, the people don't need to hear all that garbage you're talking about. Don't speak in Hebrew. Speak in a language where only the leaders can understand it, right? Because remember, not all the people was on the same page. The more languages you knew and understood, the more information you got to handle, and it was possible that you were part of the Sanhedrin. In order to be part of the Sanhedrin, which was the officials and the leaders of the people, you probably know multiple languages, so you can interact with all the different nations, right? Okay. So he said, well, speak to us in this language and not in Hebrew, because everybody over here speak Hebrew. And their retort to them was, it don't matter what language we speak to you, they should know that we coming to swipe y'all out of here too, right? So we're going to speak in language that everybody can understand. Y'all not going to defeat us. So either you join us now, or we're going to take your tails off tomorrow. Pretty much that's what they were saying, right? Okay. Now this is when the Hebrews, those who were talking to the Assyrians, when King Hezekiah's men were talking with them, that's the report that they brought back to King Hezekiah. So that's where we're at today. When King Hezekiah heard their report, he tore his clothes and put on burlap and went into the temple of Yahuwah. And he sent Eliakim, the palace administrator, Shebna, the court secretary, and the leading priest, all dressed in burlap, to the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos. They told him, this is what King Hezekiah says. Today is a day of trouble, insults, and disgrace. It is like when a child is ready to be born, but the mother has no strength to deliver the baby. But perhaps Yahuwah your God has heard the Assyrian chief of staff, sent by the king to defy the living God, and will punish him for his words. Oh, pray for those of us who are left. After King Hezekiah's officials delivered the king's message to Isaiah, the prophet replied, say to your master, this is what Yahuwah says. Don't be disturbed by this blasphemous speech against me from the Assyrian king's messengers. Listen, I myself will move against him, and the king will receive a message that he is needed at home. So he will return to his land, where I will have him killed with a sword. Meanwhile, the Assyrian chief of staff left Jerusalem and went to consult the king of Assyria, who had left Lachish and was attacking Libnah. And let me just bring up another point here, y'all. I know I say this all the time, but pay attention to Yahuwah's time markers, right? If you compare some of these prophets and the words that were truly given to them by Yah to other people and other nations, notice how very, very specific Yahuwah always is, versus some of the newfound prophets and apostles. I don't care whatever title they put on themselves, but when they tell you they got a word from Yah, listen to how it's always open-ended, and they really can't tell you for real. It's really, all of them, from what I've seen for the most part, are really general. They're really general if you would listen to what they're saying, because they leave themselves wiggle room, and a lot of them throw that once they peddle you this garbage, right? Then they tell you, I'm no prophet. I'm just sharing with you what I saw. And I'm like, y'all have to be really careful about that, right? Pay attention to how Yahuwah speaks through Isaiah, how Isaiah speaks confidently the details of what Yahuwah has said. To whereas today, some people, they may speak details, but like I said, they'll kind of leave wiggle room, so they can say, no, I didn't say this, or they'll give you some information where it could go one way or another. It's like they always leave ways to back themselves out. Listen, I'm going to read again. After King, just pay attention to, remember, they came to Isaiah the prophet, right? Isaiah sought Yahuwah. Yahuwah gave Isaiah a message, and this is the message Isaiah brought back to give to King Hezekiah on what Yahuwah said he was going to do. Yahuwah's response, right? Listen, and pay attention to what happens. After King Hezekiah's officials delivered the king's message to Isaiah, the prophet replied, say to your master, this is what Yahuwah says. Don't be disturbed by this blasphemous speech against me from the Assyrian king's messengers. Listen, I myself will move against him, and the king will receive a message that he is needed at home. So he will return to his land, where I will have him killed. Josiah Shalom. Meanwhile, the Assyrian chief of staff left Jerusalem and went to consult the king of Assyria, who had left Lachish and was attacking Libnah. Soon afterward, King Sennacherib received word that King Tirhakah of Ethiopia was leading an army to fight against him. Before leaving to meet the attack, he sent messengers back to Hezekiah in Jerusalem with this message. This message is for King Hezekiah of Judah. Don't let your God, in whom you trust, deceive you with the promises that Jerusalem will not be captured by the king of Assyria. You know perfectly well what the kings of Assyria have done wherever they have gone. They have completely destroyed everyone who stood in their way. Why should you be any different? Have the gods of other nations rescued them, such nations as Gozan, Haran, Reziph, and the people of Eden who were in Telassar? My predecessors destroyed them all. What happened to the king of Hamath and the king of Arpad? What happened to the kings of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Eva? After Hezekiah received the letter from the messengers and read it, he went up to Yahuwah's temple and spread it out before Yahuwah. And Hezekiah prayed this prayer before Yahuwah. O Lord of heaven's armies, God of Israel, you are enthroned between the mighty cherubim. You alone are God of all the kingdoms of the earth. You alone created the heavens and the earth. Bend down, O Yahuwah, and listen. Open your eyes, O Yah, and see. Listen to Sennacherib's words of defiance against the living God. Is it true, Yahuwah, that the kings of Assyria have destroyed all these nations, and they have thrown the gods of these nations into the fire and burned them? But of course the Assyrians could destroy them. They were not gods at all, only idols of wood and stone shaped by human hands. Now, O Yahuwah, our God, rescue us from his power. Then all the kingdoms of the earth will know that you alone, O Yahuwah, our God. Then Isaiah the son of Amos sent this message to Hezekiah. This is what Yahuwah the God of Israel says. Because you prayed about King Sennacherib of Assyria, Yahuwah has spoken this word against him. The virgin daughter of Zion despises you and laughs at you. The daughter of Jerusalem shakes her head in derision as you flee. Whom have you been defying and ridiculing? Against whom did you raise your voice? At whom did you look at with such haughty eyes? It was the Holy One of Israel. But your messengers you have defied Yahuwah. You have said, with my many chariots I have conquered the highest mountains. Yes, the remotest peaks of Lebanon. I have cut down its tallest cedars and its finest cypress trees. I have reached its farthest heights and explored its deepest forests. I have dug wells in many foreign lands and refreshed myself with their water. With the sole of my foot, I have stopped up all the rivers of Egypt. But have you not heard? I decided this long ago. Long ago I planned it, and now I am making it happen. I planned for you to crush fortified cities into heaps of rubble. That is why their people have so little power and are so frightened and confused. They are as weak as grass, as easily trampled as tender green shoots. They are like grass sprouting on a housetop, scorched before it can grow lush and tall. But I tell you well where you stay, and when you come and when you go. I know the way that you have raged against me, and because of your raging against me and your arrogance, which I have heard for myself, I will put a hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth. I will make you return by the same road which you came. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, here is proof that what I say is true. Listen, here is proof, right? This year, the time markers, here is proof what the prophet is saying is true. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, here's the proof that what I say is true. This year, time marker, the current year that they were in, this year, you will eat only what grows up by itself, and next year you will eat what springs up from that. But in the third year you will plant crops and harvest them. You will tend vineyards and eat their fruit. And you who are left in Judah, who have escaped the ravages of the siege, will put down roots in your own soil and grow up and flourish. For the remnant of my people will spread out from Jerusalem, a group of survivors from Mount Zion. The compassionate commitment of Yahuwah's army will make this happen. And this is what Yahuwah says about the king of Assyria. His armies will not enter Jerusalem. They will not even shoot an arrow at it. They will not march outside its gates with their shields, nor build banks of earth against its walls. The king will return to his own country by the same road which he came. He will not enter this city, says Yahuwah. For my own honor, for my own honor, and for the sake of my servant David, I will defend this city and protect it. That night, the angel of Yahuwah went out against the Assyrian camp and killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. When the surviving Assyrians woke up the next morning, They found corpses everywhere. Then King Sennacherib of Assyria broke camp and returned to his own land. He went home to he went home to his capital of Nineveh and stayed there. One day, while he was worshiping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adramelech and Sharezer killed him with their swords. Then they escaped to the land of Ararat, and another son, Esarhaddon, became the next king of Assyria. Look like what Yahuwah has said has come true, right? They did not come up against Jerusalem. They returned to their own land where the king was killed, right? That's exactly what Yahuwah said. All right, Isaiah chapter 38. Hezekiah's sickness and recovery. About that time, Hezekiah became deathly ill, and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amos, went to visit him. He gave the king this message. This is what Yahuwah says. Set your affairs in order, for you are going to die. You will not recover from this illness. When Hezekiah heard this, he turned his face to the wall and prayed to Yahuwah. Remember, O Yah, how I have always been faithful to you and have served you single-mindedly, always doing what pleases you. Then he broke down and wept bitterly. Then this message came to Isaiah from Yahuwah. Go back to Hezekiah and tell him, this is what Yahuwah says. Go back to Hezekiah and tell him, this is what Yahuwah, the God of your ancestor David, says. I have heard your prayer and seen your tears. I will add 15 years to your life, and I will rescue you and this city from the king of Assyria. Yes, I will defend this city. And this is the sign from Yahuwah to prove that he will do as he promised. I will cause the sun's shadow to move 10 steps backward on the sundial of Ahaz. So the shadow on the sundial moved backwards 10 steps. Notice how when Yahuwah says, and I keep repeating it, but I want y'all to pay attention. When he says he's going to do something, he always shows you when he's going to do it. There's always a time marker there. Okay. When King Hezekiah was well again, he wrote this poem. I said, in the prime of my life, must I now enter into the place of the dead? Am I to be robbed of the rest of my years? I said, never again will I see Yahuwah while I stand in the land of the living. Never again will I see my friends or be with those who live in this world. My life has been blown away like a shepherd's tent in a storm. It has been cut short as when a weaver cuts cloth from a loom. Suddenly, my life was over. I waited patiently all night, but I was torn apart as though by lions. Suddenly, my life was over. Delirious, I chattered like a swallow or a crane. Then I moaned like a mourning dove. My eyes grew tired of looking to heaven for help. I am in trouble, Yahuwah, help me. But what could I say? For he himself sent this sickness. Now I will walk humbly through my years because of this anguish I have felt. Yahuwah, your discipline is good, for it leads to life and health. You restore my health and allow me to live. Yes, this anguish was good for me, for you have rescued me from death and forgiven all my sins. For the dead cannot praise you. They cannot raise their voices in praise. Those who go down to the grave can no longer hope in your faithfulness. Only the living can praise you as I do today. Each generation tells of your faithfulness to the next. Think of it. Yahuwah is ready to heal me. I will sing praises with instruments every day of my life in the temple of Yahuwah. Isaiah said to Hezekiah's servants, make an ointment of figs and spread it over the boil, and Hezekiah will recover. And Hezekiah had asked, what sign will prove that I will go into the temple of Yahuwah? I'm going to go into Isaiah chapter 39, which is the last chapter for the day. Soon after this, Merodach-Baladan, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent Hezekiah his best wishes and a gift. He had heard that Hezekiah had been very sick and that he had recovered. Hezekiah was delighted with the Babylonian envoys and showed them everything in his treasure, houses, the silver, the gold, the spices, and the Aramaic oils. He also took them to see his armory and showed them everything in his royal treasuries. There was nothing in his palace or kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. Then Isaiah the prophet went to King Hezekiah and asked him, "What did those men want? Where are they from?" Hezekiah replied, "They came from the distant land of Babylon." "What did they see in your palace?" What did they see in your palace? Asked Isaiah. "They saw everything," Hezekiah replied. "I showed them everything I own, all my royal treasuries." Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, "Listen to this message from Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies. The time is coming when everything in your palace, all the treasures stored up by your ancestors until now, will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says Yahuwah. Some of your very own sons will be taken away into exile. They will become eunuchs who will serve in the palace of Babylon's king." Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "This message you have given me from Yahuwah is good, for the king was thinking, at least there will be peace and security during my lifetime." And that is where we pause for today in the book of Isaiah. That was Isaiah 37, 38, and 39. So let's go ahead and hop on over here to where we left off yesterday from Fossilized Customs. Y'all, I didn't do my fasting video yesterday. Like I said, I was going to make for y'all. I'm going to do it today. I had to pull some stuff together for it. So I can be a little more detailed. I'm going to try and keep it short. But also with the group me, like Dana suggested, I thought about that. I don't know that I'm going to do a group me, simply for the fact, because when you do group me or like WhatsApp for the support group, people's phone numbers are, not that y'all care, but some people do. Your phone numbers are shown there, and I'm not sure that everybody who wants to be a part of it wants their personal cell phone numbers visible to everybody else, right? So I'm thinking about all those things, and I'm thinking it may just have to be maybe like a Facebook private group or something, or maybe just asking questions under the fasting videos that I'll respond to, right? But I'm thinking of like the most efficient way that'll also keep everybody's personal information protected, right? I know some of us don't mind because some of us are like family and friends that we know outside of social media, but some we don't. Not that we don't trust those outside of social media, but some people are really particular about their personal information and being exposed. So I'm thinking about all those things. So it probably will just be a medium where everybody's personal information is protected. So I'll let y'all know what that's going to be. All right, y'all. So we stopped on page, what I put? Yeah, I did right, page 203, down at the bottom. Okay. No one is hopeless if they are praying for the truth. When it is shown that human traditions have become religion and partial truths have been mixed with lies and doctrines of demons, a rebellion will occur like no other has before all over the earth. We are part of the restoration, the rebuilding of the temple of Yahuwah made without hands. This is the temple that will come from the skies. It will be us. You have found the true Nazarene. We are hated without a cause, like Yahusha, and we are in a war of truth against lies, light against darkness. We are spoken against everywhere. Okay, and here is everybody know what this star is, right? They call it the Star of David. Okay. The two deaths, and it's two triangles on top of each other, one right side up, the other one upside down, right? Okay. The seal of David. Because of Christian anti-Semitism and misinformation, many will say this symbol was used by pagans, but there is an older origin to it that is overlooked. It isn't a religious symbol, yet it is a scriptural fulfillment. The symbol of Torah, Yahusha, or, well, let's say, we keep adding that in there. But anyway, the symbol of Torah is the menorah, a representation of the tree of life. The banner of King David struck terror in the heart of his enemies, and the two inverted letters represented the name David or Dawid. He was the beloved one of Yahuwah. Beloved is spelled Daleth or Daleth or D-U-D, right? But in the Hebrew language, they don't give like the names of the letters. It's actually the sounds, right? It's the king's seal, and it will be the throne of David upon which Yahusha will one day sit and reign. Hold on, to reign the earth. It look like it's missing a word. Okay. It's the seal. It's the king's seal, and it will be the throne of David upon which Yahushua will one day sit to reign the earth and the universe. Which Yahuwah is Yahuwah, right? People are led to believe this seal was the star mentioned in Acts chapter 7, but that star was made to bow to. The seal of David has never been bowed to. The cross symbol was and still is bowed to throughout human history. The Yahudim venerated the zodiac, even putting the animal symbols in Yahuwah's temple. See Ezekiel chapter 8. And in other buildings. David's name is his seal. In Isaiah chapter 11, verses 10 through 13, describes a banner, which is a flag. Ephraim, one of the 10 lost families of Israel, is mentioned along with Yehuda, and Adonai Yahuwah is said to reach out his hand a second time to reclaim the remnant of his people who were lost, dispersed over the earth. On this banner is the symbol of the root of Jesse. This means a descendant of Jesse being David. It's a king's seal, the literal name David. Commonly called a star, it is really David's name, written in two Paleo Hebrew letters, two Dallas, beginning and ending of David's name. It stands today on the flag of Israel and is the symbol of a great king of Israel that once ruled over all the tribes. Over time, Satanists began to use it with a circle around it, since in conjuring up demons, they believe they must stand in a circle of protection as they do. That won't help, since candles and circles with symbols cannot protect anyone from demons. They may as well repel them with crosses, as we see done in vampire movies. By the way, the real reason Dracula hates the cross, it is the symbol of the sun. The vampires are not real, but demons are. Many Christian teachers are actively promoting the notion that this seal is demonic and refer to Acts chapter 7 verses 43, but they are mistaken. The shrine of Molech and the star of your god Rephaim is the symbol used by Islam today, which is a moon and star, symbolizing child sacrifice to Molech. The moon symbol represents Semiramis, Diana, Artemis, Asherah, Ishtar, Easter, and the star Tammuz, her child. Another image is commonly seen today but misunderstood is the old image of Shamash, here seen on an ancient incense burner and later on a Catholic stained glass window, reinterpreted to be the Star of Bethlehem. I'm going to show it to you. Hope this not too dark. Okay, so if you got the book, you can stare at it a little bit longer. Some will try to convince you that it is an evil talisman able to be inhabited by demons. Try to educate them, but avoid being offensive. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 through 12 is a text that should guide us in love and applies to many areas. The cross seen by Constantine was, in his mind, the image of his deity Apollo, the sun. The ancient world had no doubt what the cross image represented, but we do today. Okay, Constantine and Apollo. And they had a coin. You probably didn't see that while I was showing out the picture, but just in case you didn't, it's right here. Okay. Paul and circumcision. One of Paul's biggest challenges came from those Nazarene who insisted on circumcising adult Gentiles. Those who reject or misunderstand Paul sometimes force ritual circumcision on new converts. When Nazarene discuss these kinds of issues, I like to bear in mind that while there is an ideal and goal in all of Yahuwah's wonderful teachings, our love has to remain the foremost goal. Achieving absolute perfection and not having love, we are doomed to fail. Our love is the real test, and by the measure we judge, we will be judged. Love is a verb, an action word, not a feeling. The thief who died next to Yahushua was accepted because he had a change of thinking. Circumcision is an eternal covenant sign. It is related to land inheritance, but not eternal life. Our immersion in the name of Yahuwah, who we covenant with, has become our circumcision. It is a pledge of good conscience toward Yahuwah. Paul states it very well. In him you are also circumcised, in putting off the sinful nature, not with a circumcision done by the hands of men, but with the circumcision done by Yahuwah, but with the circumcision done by Mashiach, having been buried with him, immersion, baptism, and raised with him through your faith in the power of Yahuwah, who raised him from the dead. That's why I paused for a second, because it's going into the whole, like, you really don't have to add this stuff in here, y'all. I should have stopped the sentence up there. Okay, I don't have an issue at all with baptism. We were baptized, right? It's an outward showing that you're pretty much, in kind of summing up in layman's terms, you're just washing your past life away, all the ignorance, all the sin, all the filth. Is like your new start, right? You turn a new leaf. You turn from the ways of the world, turn into the ways of Yah, right? You're turning from disobedience now back to obedience of following Yah. It's an outward action that you do. Okay. Immersion represents our circumcision by Yahuwah, the living word. The main issue of the council recorded at Acts 15 regarding Gentiles turning to Yahuwah involved the controversy of fleshly circumcision, and the decision reached remains unclear even to many Nazarenes today. Those who believe and are immersed will be delivered. Yahuwah didn't include any fleshly circumcision here, so an adult Gentile can become a Hebrew without a fleshly circumcision. Is the sign, oath, OTH, of the eternal covenant circumcision or the Sabbath? Yahuwah circumcises our hearts so we can walk in the Spirit, obeying the Torah willingly as an obedient servant. Ephesians chapter 2:11 discusses how a Gentile's citizenship in Israel is accomplished Ephesians 2:11 discusses how a Gentile citizenship in Israel is accomplished and the dividing wall between believing Gentiles and the circumcised is abolished. Romans 3:28 and 29 states, a man is not a Jew if he is only one outwardly, the circumcision, nor is circumcision merely outward and physical. No, a man is a Jew if he is one inwardly, and circumcision is circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not by the written code. Such a man's praise is not from men, but from Yahuwah. Romans chapter 3 verses 30 states that Yahuwah will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through the same faith. Romans 4 explains more about this. Circumcision is and always has been an issue of controversy among the Nazarene. Belief or trust in Yahuwah makes us children of Abraham, who was justified even before he was circumcised. All believers who have been circumcised by the sword of the Spirit in their hearts are the children of Yahuwah. We are unable to perfect or improve what Yahuwah has already done. Okay. The next section. Manifestation of Yahuwah. They will look upon me, the one whom they have pierced, and mourn for him, as one mourns for an only child, and grieve bitterly for him as one who grieves for a firstborn son. Zechariah 12:10. The sun is the radiance of Yahuwah's esteem and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 6. Keep in mind, right outlook, that Israel is Yahuwah's firstborn son, right? Talks about this firstborn son. That's what it just said in Zechariah 12:10. You will grieve for him as one grieve for a firstborn son, right? But this is, if you read it in context, when you go to Zechariah, it is talking about Israel, right? When the world realizes who Yahuwah's firstborn son is, they are going to grieve and mourn, right? Just like someone would who's lost their very own firstborn son, right? Okay. Many words can be written to counter the above, but they would never change their meaning. The secret is withheld, being veiled to those who cannot accept the husband. Hold on. The secret is withheld. Okay, that's not true. I'm going to skip over this altogether right here. Because that goes against what Yahuwah says. If you got the book, you can see. Right? Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to, because it's leading up to this, and this is. Hold on, y'all. Let's double check it. Yeah, I should have skipped that whole section altogether, right? Because I can't in good conscience read that knowing that just about all, it is mixed in real good. So instead of just kind of explaining like every couple seconds, we're just going to skip that whole section together, right? Because it's still talking about the human sacrifice, right? We're going to skip that. Let's go to the next section, right? It says, David is not in heaven with a question mark, but I just glanced at it real quick. Okay. Paul says to be absent from the body is to be present with Yahuwah after death. The very next thing you will know would be awakening and being with Yahuwah. I may only differ with some on the passage of time, but we can easily see that Acts 2:34 clearly states, for David did not ascend into the heavens. And we also read that no one ascended into the heavens except the one who descended. So David is not yet with Yahuwah, but sleeps in the grave, awaiting his resurrection. Daniel was told, many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will wake up. He was told to go his way to the end and rest, and he would rise to his lot at the end of days. Each of us, the congregation, participates in getting people converted to the truth. We are all involved in teaching, immersing, correcting, training, guiding, planting, and watering. You are slaves or servants of the one whom you obey. Romans chapter 6:16. A foolish people has spurned your name. Psalms chapter 74, verse 18. Scattered tribes became the nations. Reading Ezekiel chapter 36, verses 17 through 38, and 37, verses 1 through 28, especially Ezekiel chapter 36 and 27, we discover the two houses of Israel, Yehudah or Judah, the southern kingdom, and Ephraim or Israel, the northern kingdom. They will be united into one stick in Yahuwah's hand. Today we are witnessing the scattered tribes embedded in the Gentiles returning to the covenant with all their hearts in all the places where Yahuwah scattered them. Deuteronomy chapter 30 verses 1. This is a prelude to the return of Yahuwah. When he reveals himself to his brothers, it will be a day of great mourning as described in Zechariah chapter 12, and one will be reminded of how it was when Joseph revealed himself to his brothers in Egypt after being sold into slavery, imprisoned innocently by Potiphar, and rising to the highest position of the kingdom. Not long ago, someone wrote to me from prison saying he was about to be released, but didn't think he could return to his wife and child because they were Christian. Since learning the truth, this individual was only interested in being with others like himself, accepting those who are different. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 through 23. And it has in parentheses pilot text. In this whole area of his letter, Paul is on a tangent or line of thought which pertains generally to his right to be called an emissary. He was under great stress because other Nazarene were questioning him constantly. They didn't trust him completely. He seemed to be associating with people others turned their noses up at. Some thought he believed differently. He said he was under compulsion to spread the message of the reign of Yahuwah to all mankind, not for any recognition or reward. He explains why he speaks to anyone who will listen. He doesn't think anyone as a lost cause, but all have the potential to win the race. He calls his journey a race, and he encounters all types of people along the way. Some are beginning, others are farther along in knowledge. Even though Paul understood many things more deeply than most Nazarene, like the meaning of the renewed covenant, the Torah written on our hearts and minds, he realized we needed other basic advice, like how to get along with each other and others who were not yet on the same page. Divisions existed then just as they do now. Abraham means father of nations. Many nations are the seed of the Abrahamic promise, and the spirit of Yahuwah within us has a goal which many of us push into the background. He wants to use us to reach the lost sheep of the tribes of Israel, the 10 lost tribes, with the message of the kingdom of Yahuwah. How committed to this are we? Many place their highest goal on finding and meeting with others who believe like they do, seeking others who use the same words, observe the same appointments, and a similar knowledge level, make the kingdom of Yahuwah more like an us versus them meeting. We can see the kingdom of Yahuwah because we are of it, but all of us are sent to gather more to the wedding supper. We need more workers for the harvest and pray to the master for them. In 1 Corinthians 9, Paul is telling us we must become like the people around us, that is, infiltrate them. A prisoner that wrote to me a few years ago was dedicated to the name, the appointed times, and so on, but he could not accept others who were different, even his own wife and child. I wrote to him about this. Even if it takes a lifetime, our place on earth is to help those who need us the most. It is not our mission to isolate ourselves together only with others who already follow and understand, and we are sent to those being called out. A bag of seed has to get out of the bag to be planted into the dirt, not stay together bunched up with other seed. Yahuwah plants the seed through us, his vessels. Also, another point to listen to and to think about, y'all, if y'all have been gardening or got into the habit of gardening, you will also realize, keeping with the example that he just gave here about being bunched up together with like-minded people. Not saying that you shouldn't hang out with like-minded people, because you should, right? But you have to, as you guys grow, think about this. And if you have planted and you have seedlings coming up, you will really understand this principle very, very well. You can plant seeds, right? I watch some gardeners and some farmers as they scatter seed in the ground. Like, I literally watch this, right? Videos and people doing it. But they tell you if you do it this way, when you get the seed in the ground, get it in there to germinate. But depending on what type of seed you are sowing will tell you how much space is going to need to grow and how far apart from other seeds you need to plant it. Now you can plant some really close together, But as they get to that seedling stage, you have to you got to spread them out, right? You got to uproot them a little bit, and you got to spread them out because they're going to grow and they're going to need some more space. And if you don't do that, I learned this the first year, and actually that really didn't click in real good until this year, right? When I was like, what in the world? I know I planted these seeds here, but why it seem like they coming up good? I see the seedlings like, yes, and then they began to die. And maybe one out of that batch of seeds will live, right? They're too close together. They all need their own space to grow, right? Same thing with human beings. As we learn to grow, we got to sometimes be separated from other people, because as we grow, our paths of growing and even our roots, because they're going to go down in different areas of the soil, they're going to begin to touch the other roots, and they're going to begin to mingle together. They're going to bunch up, and they're going to choke the nutrients out of one another, right? You know how sometimes you have to you just kind of have to separate. Even looking at with grade levels, as you get more knowledge, you have to separate the ones who know more from the ones who know less, right? The ones who know more, if they're not trained, they're still really immature. They could literally choke out the life and choke out the seed in the younger ones, and the younger ones can frustrate the older ones. And if you have a age range of children living in your house like I do, it's like they're all stair climbing steps, right? 4, 6, 8, 10, and it's like you can see the growth, and you can see how the 10-year-old gets agitated with the 4-year-old while they're doing certain things, because she don't quite understand, but he doesn't have enough patience. I'm like, why are you arguing with a 4-year-old, right? He doesn't have the patience yet. He hasn't developed the patience yet to be patient with her while she learns, or while the 10-year-old and the 8-year-old are playing the game. You suck at this game. Don't do that to him. You had to go through those learning stages too. He's just learning how to play. You've mastered this level. Don't do that to him. I said, teach him. I don't want to teach him. I want to keep playing up here. I was like, well, then you don't play with him. Find another partner your age and don't play with your brother, right? It's those type of things. So you have to spread the seeds out as they begin to grow while they're germinating. And when you see them break through the soil, leave them alone for maybe like another week. But when you can tell that the seedlings are strong, you need to begin to spread them out, right? You can leave them in the same area, but you have to spread them out just a little bit, because if you leave them as close as they are when you first planted them, they're going to choke each other out. Both may die. Only one may die. Only one may produce fruit, right? It may grow strong enough. And then again, they could all choke everybody out, and all of them die together, right? Now, you don't necessarily have to follow that you don't have to follow that method of planning where you have to spread them out after they grow. You can just from the very beginning give them their proper space, and so that's what because I don't like having, I learned that I don't like having to uproot a plant after it's already started growing roots, because the root system is still developing, right? It's not completely strong. It's still developing. If you're not careful, and if you go to dig it up, and if you don't go down deep enough and get under the roots, you could mess up the root system while it's growing, and you could bring damage to the plant. Then you kill the seedling, and when you uproot it and transplant it to another place, it just dies, right? But you also have to be careful the type of soil that you put it in. You have to make sure it's like the same type of atmosphere where you're uprooting it from and putting it at, so it can continue to thrive, right? You may have to add some more nutrients, whatever. That's a principle that I have learned really well, right? Even with people who are coming into the truth and they know a little bit less than I do. Now I'm like, okay, I got patience for y'all. Now I understand, like I can understand it physically from my growth spiritually, where I can have patience with people that's asking like a lot of questions. And some people just don't have the patience. I get it. I was there. Somebody asks you a question, you think they're trying to challenge what you know and how you know that. Not that they're saying it to you like that, but they're simply asking you questions because they genuinely want to know, right? But while I was immature, I couldn't see it. And I just thinking everybody want to fight with me. And they really didn't. Some did. And I ain't gonna lie, some did. But some were really genuinely asking questions because they really were not understanding. And so as I began to grow a little bit more, I'm like, okay, so I don't really get pissed with anybody too much, right? I will check them over, see what is your real motive here, right? But I realized mostly everybody that I encounter at this stage, they genuinely want to know why I think the way I think, or how did I come to certain conclusions, right? So you have to, when you if you just randomly scatter your seeds, you have, depending on what you're growing, some things they thrive growing close together. Some things you absolutely must stand out, right? So for instance, I wish I had it in here. Let me show you. Let me grab it. I do. Let me grab it. I'm gonna show you something. Hold on one second. Okay. So I went and got my little accordion file, right? And in here, I'm gonna show you. In here, you probably can't see it. It's black, and I wrote on it with like blue. But anyway, if you get in the light real good, you see it says seeds, right? So in here, I thought this was a good way to keep my seeds. It's dark, and I keep it in a dark place. And it has the, if you see an accordion file, it's some you get numbers, but others are letters. So this is an alphabetical accordion file, right? And in here, all my seeds like corn and seed, whatever the seed is, I'll place it in that particular letter, right? Okay, so what I wanted to show y'all was this about the planting, right? So with this is a garden tool that I use. It's a planting guide, right? And so if you're not familiar with how far apart you need to plant certain type of seeds, this is a really, really good help. I don't use it a lot now because I'm kind of familiar with it, and I just kind of glance at the chart. Okay, how far apart does it need to be? And I can kind of just look at the ground now. I'm like, okay, this far apart, this far apart, this far apart. Okay, and it's color coded as well, which is also color coded on this square planting guide, right? So you would take this, and this is a 4x4. It's a 4x4. Hold on, before I think it's 4x4. Yeah, it's like a 4x4 square where you can sit in the ground. Like wherever you're going to plant, you take it and you can sit it there, and it'll make those squares, right? So you can put it here, make the indentation in the dirt. Boom, there's a square, there's a square, there's a square, right? You can go out and do that like that and poke the holes. But what I did, I put it in the ground, and depending on what I was planting, it'll tell you how many seeds you should plant in the ground and how far apart you need to plant them, right? Okay, so the ones that you can plant close together, and you don't have to, as they grow, you don't need to spread them out, are things like beets, carrots, green onions, leeks, microgreens, parsnips, radishes, salad greens, scallions, and turnips, right? You can plant 16 seeds within that square. And I would have bought the square in here, but it's outside. I had to literally run outside into my thing and grab it. But you would get it. You can Google this and you can see exactly what I'm talking about, right? But I'll show you the picture up here. So with it being color coded, and you will see that this first box is red, right? So all of these things that you can plant this close together and don't have to worry about spreading them out during their process of growth. You can plant them this close together. It shows you that you can plant, if you're planting beets, you can plant 16 beet seeds this close together within that square. So there are red squares in that square. Yeah, thank you, Dana. Square foot gardening. Yes, it's a square foot. It has all these holes all around this square, right? And so what you would do, you would just drop a seed in every red hole on the square, right? And so if you look here, you will see it's red holes. Now some of them have multiple colors over each hole, but it's also letting you know that other things can be planted there if you're following the chart, right? Okay, so right through here, 4 rows, and you can plant a total of 16 beets, right? But if you're getting more, now you want to plant something that's a little bit more hardy, that needs a deeper root system, you have to plant it, you have to give it more space to grow. So when you jump over to the yellow chart, and things that are in the yellow chart are beans or pole beans, bush beans, large beets. Okay, the first one with the red, you got different size beets, like the small beets, and the red is the small beets. But over here, you have the large beets. You have bok choy, celery, mustard greens, onions, the onion bulbs, peas, soybeans, spinach, and large turnips, right? Now you only have 9 yellow holes because of the space and the root system that they need to spread apart. So now if you're going to plant any of these, you have to plant it this far apart, right? And vice versa. And when you get to the blues, right, they need a little more space to grow because they're going to grow bigger, right? They need an even deeper root system. And there you have corn, chives, garlic, lettuce heads, rutabaga, shallots, sunflowers, and Swiss chard, right? And this is not a whole list of all of it, but this is just a good summary of different types of seeds. These are not all the seeds, but they're just giving you examples, right? And then when you need to plant something that needs an even deeper root system, you got to move everybody away from them, right? So depending on, even if you're learning, as you get higher in your learning, look at this, look. As you're growing up, the taller you grow, the deeper your root system gets out, and the further away it's spreading out, right? Think about trees, how tall they are and how deep their root systems go and how far spread apart they are. Now you have some that are really close together, but you have mighty oaks. Go look at the different classifications of trees and look at how close different trees are to them and spaced far apart. You can see this in nature. You're not going to see a bunch of mighty oaks gathered together in a forest. They literally stand alone by themselves because of the magnitude of their root system and how deep they have to go and how far apart they are spread, right? They've taken up way more space, and anybody that gets near a mighty oak, that mighty oak is going to choke the life out of it, right? So you have to space it apart appropriately. So I'm working through all these things, learning how to garden, right? And how to keep my garden, keep my plants and stuff alive. But it's these principles, if you don't understand, these is like stair steps, basic level type truths in gardening. And when you learn how to do it in gardening, you begin to see the principles and how they operate in your life, right? And as you learn more, you get higher, you move apart from other people, right? Because you're just going to agitate one another. You can't give some people too much information. You're going to choke them out. They're going to die, right? But you have to be mindful that this is actually what's happening. It's not a bad thing. You need your own space now, right? Because you need more room to grow. You need more room to kind of exercise. The wind gonna blow. You need space to walk around, observe where other people may not be at this point, right? You got freedom. We trust you. We'll give you some fire. We'll give you some gasoline. We'll give you all the ingredients you need to perform your scientific experiments to test for yourself. Yeah, this is good. This is wrong. Oop, let's not do that. That just blew up. That took my eyebrows off. Nope, this don't work. What's wrong with this formula, right? As you get older, you get more leeway, you get more room to grow and practice things, right? And that is not a bad thing, y'all, right? You will learn. If you keep learning, if you stay in school, right, you should learn. And there's always a teacher, right? And sometimes you have hidden teachers, right? There's always a teacher watching, making sure you're doing this appropriately, but they know you're going to need some space, right? So we need to move everybody else away. We're making this a safe space for you to grow, to experiment with things so you can see how this operates. And we'll keep the other people who are not quite ready for that safe off into another space while they're still learning and while they're still growing, right? It's the same thing with the planting. So now when you get over here to the orange, with the square that they have, you can only plant one seed in that square, right? And so if you're planting broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, eggplant, collard greens, peppers, potatoes, strawberries, your seed, sunflowers, the large sunflowers or tomato vines, you can't plant anything well, I'm sorry. You can plant around these. Okay, let me fix something. Okay, so if you plant one tomato plant, right? So say you got the square and you plant that tomato plant right here, or even a stalk of corn. Anybody that's grown corn, like my sister, she grew corn. I'm still struggling to grow corn over here. This is her first year growing corn, and her corn is taller than she is, right? If you go to her Facebook page, you will see the pictures, or even on Instagram. I'm gonna see him like, what in the world? Like, I know I'm doing more studying than my sister is, but I'm like, you know what? Her ground purely comes from heaven itself, right? Because she never had an issue with growing nothing over there. But she was looking at different things and where her home was built at and the type of land and stuff. Mine is really woody, and I have a huge tree in my yard, which also means that there's a bunch of roots underground, which I can see because they're coming out of the ground, which probably chokes the life out of different things, which is why my yard doesn't, in certain areas, doesn't really grow well. So now that I understand that, I can quit being frustrated about stuff, right? So I'm like, oh, so you have to pay attention and observe your own surroundings and what's going on with you and why your yard is not blooming or growing or progressing. If it's not, you have some underlying issues, or you don't quite understand something yet, right? That's just not with gardening, right? That's also with our spiritual life, even with our families too. So you'll notice with the orange, you can only plant one of those, but I've also found out that with some of the ones in the orange, it's called companion planting, right? There are some that you can companion plant with, and you can put these smaller ones around it. Like you can plant corn, right? But around the corn, you can plant beans and peas. Not only will the what's like nitrogen, the different things released from the different seeds will complement one another, but a stalk of corn will make a fine trellis for growing beans and peas and those climbing fruits, because cucumbers climb. That's why they need space. You got to spread them out from everybody else, because as they begin to grow, they're going to spread out everywhere. Let me tell you, the first year I planted my garden, because my husband's mom, she's had gardens pretty much all her life. He grew up with gardens, right? So first year out there planting the first garden, y'all may remember the video. I was like, look, I said I was so excited about my little garden that I had planted out there. Look, I planted cucumbers and tomatoes and beans all right beside one another, right? And I planted them, I just kind of really scattered them too, right? And so just getting into it, not really reading a lot about them, just like, boom, we're going to do this, we're just going to go. And so I had it all done. The husband helped till up the ground. Well, he did all the tilling up the ground. I just kind of planted the seeds, right? But he tilled up the ground. We got all, it was looking all nice and pretty, and took pictures and posted them on Facebook and everything. Then his mom was like, Pam, the garden look good, girl. She said, what you got planted? You know, and then so clearly she could see what I had. And she said, you need to space them tomatoes out from them cucumbers. She said, they're going to kill each other. I'm like, what? You know, I'm like, at first I want to say, you don't know what you're talking about. But my wiser mind paused, wait a minute. She's had a garden forever. As long as I've known his family, she's always growing something, and her flowers and stuff are absolutely beautiful. This woman knows what she's talking about, right? So I'm like, okay, well, how far apart should I spread them? She said, this. She said, because the cucumbers, she said, they are going to grow and they're going to take over everything, right? And she said, tomato plants, they just need space to grow. They have to pull the nutrients, and they need their own space too. So she said, move them out, spread them out some. So I was like, okay, and I did that, and I'm so glad I did, because that year that happened, I had a really good first year, right? My cucumbers, it wasn't the beans, it was cucumbers, tomatoes, and squash that I put together. She said all of them need to be spread out, and clearly I didn't have this chart at the time, but what she told me was true, because as they began to grow up, the cucumber vines and stuff, they began to grow all over the place. And that's when I learned about trellises. I'm like, okay, what do I do? They're just like growing out, so they grow all out over the yard. And so I'm Googling YouTube, you have to get a trellis, something that they can grow up, because they are climbing plants. I was like, oh. So I went and bought some trellises, and I took the vines and I laid them up there, and it was beautiful. They grew over the trellis and did all this, and they stayed in their space, and they produced cucumbers. But another trick I found out about cucumbers, the more you harvest them, the more will grow. So don't just let them grow in this, oh, I got all these cucumbers, they look pretty, because what's going to happen is cucumbers are a smart plant. The more you harvest, it's responding to how you harvest it, right? If you pluck one, oh, you need more. You eat more of this. It's going to grow more. So the more you harvest, the more the cucumber plant will produce. And if you got good soil, it'll keep producing until it's not producing anymore, right? So, but if you only pluck one, maybe pluck one a week, that's all it's going to give you, and it's going to stop producing. The same thing with tomato plants as well. Prune them often, harvest them often. It'll give you more output, right? So that's something that I learned about spacing apart and actually growing, which is a perfect example and teaches you wonderfully about spiritual growth. And as you grow, as you begin to learn more, you just have to be separated from the others who are not quite there yet. Some will come along with you, and some will grow with you, and you won't be a danger to one another, right? You may actually complement one another depending on what you are and what they are, right? You may not have, for example, say you got two teachers, right? You won't have two teachers this close together, because a teacher has to teach, a teacher has to experiment, a teacher has to kind of go through and just practice some things just to make sure this is lining up, right? So the teacher needs space. But you can have a companion like marigolds. You can plant marigolds just about around anything, and they will not interfere with your crop. They'll actually keep pests away, right? So if you learn how to companion plant and learn how to plant different seeds with, like, well, I ain't gonna say like-minded seeds, they're completely different. Like you can plant lettuce and you can plant onions together, right? The onions will act as a natural pest repellent and keep your crop from being eaten by bugs, right? So it's those different things you kind of learn along the way through trial and error, and not being able to keep your crops alive, right? So you got to figure out what's going wrong, right? So that's what I learned, to be patient with myself. And some people, like, look, and my husband, he said, girl, you waste. I was like, look, I didn't grow up doing this, right? I said, so I have to learn. And what better way to learn through trial and error, right? You learn 9,999 ways how not to do something. And it seemed like all those 9,999 ways happen before you find that one way that does, right? But is that a waste? Is it a complete waste? Are you a failure? Absolutely not, because you've gathered some wisdom where you can help the next person. That don't work, this is why. Let me tell you the 9,999 ways that I found out that these ways don't work. Here, I'm going to share some wisdom with you. Do it like this, or from my experiment, from my experience, this is what happened. See, I kept track of my results and every which way, right? Planting and gardening is no different. Some people just get frustrated of, you know what, I'm gonna just go buy another plant, and they'll just keep buying plants after they killing the other ones and never take the time to find out why this keeps dying. Is it a human factor, or did you really get bad seed? Because you can put seeds in the ground, and now all of them seeds will germinate and grow as well, right? Same thing with people, right? Different people have different gifts. Not all the people will grow. Some will not. Some will stay seeds unbroken, right? While other ones are cracking their seeds and they're changing their form and they look like something totally different. You cannot tell. Let me show y'all. Everybody know what a corn seed look like, right? Let's see if I got some open. Oh, we'll use a marigold. This is what marigolds look like, right? Look. A marigold seed. When I saw them, like, wow. Okay. So this is what a marigold seed looked like. It almost looked like a match to me. I wish I had some tweezers. Hold on. Make sure you can see it. This is a marigold, right? When you put this seed into the ground, make sure Facebook can see that. Can you see that, y'all? That kind of look blurry on Facebook. Can y'all see that? I know YouTube can see it, but Facebook it look kind of blurry. If you can't, y'all might just have to Google what a marigold seed look like, right? Okay, so when you put this seed into the ground, into the right type of soil and environment, and water it appropriately, it will change its form, and then it will begin to look like this. So when you bloom, whether you are gardening or whether your life is blooming, you are not going to look like you first did. You are going to change and evolve over the different phases of your growth, right? Which is why a lot of times I keep all of my videos up here. If you go to my backup channel, which was actually my first channel, some of them videos I just look and I just slap my face like, ugh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. I was like, I really believe that crap? But I leave it there because I like to see progress, right? I do not. If you go look at some of them earlier videos that I've done in 2014, we in 2021, I look like this. I look like this. Compared to this in 2021, I like some look, people who don't understand the process and the phases of growth. I've had a lot of people unsubscribe because I needed room to grow, right? I needed room to grow. Yeah, Trina, we done with the reading. I'm just kind of chatting now. I was giving an example from what we was reading from Fossilized Customs. You nodded off. You'll rewind it when you get off work. But that's what will happen as you grow. And even, guys, you can see this principle in every area of life, even with our lives, right? Even with our lives. What happens is when the seed, the human seed, is passed from the father to the mother in the form of a sperm, look at how different that looks from the way I look at today, right? It's still the same seed, but if you were to peel back my flesh and to crack open my bones, you will still see that seed in its growth form, right? What is it? It's the brain with the stem, the nerves and stuff hanging out of it, right? And then it's covered over with a hard shell and then with skin. But that same seed, that same sperm is still in there. It's just grown up, right? And you would never be able to tell a sperm side by side with a human full-blown grown person. You would never be able to tell that this monstrous being compared to this tiny semen that you have to actually look at, one of them. Now you can see a host of, look, that probably sounds a little gross. Now you can, if you was to look at a sample of semen in the cup, that one little cup in that sample, it's a whole host. It's probably billions of semen. But in order to isolate one of those seeds, you would have to take it and put it under a microscope to see one. That's how small and seemingly insignificant that seed is, right? That one tiny seed which gives birth to this, right? Over the process of time and as it grows, right? You can see this process in everything. So we got on this by talking about people. He gave the example about the guy who was no longer a Christian. He said he don't think he could go back to his wife and his daughter, his wife and his child, because he was in jail. While he was in jail, he converted, and he didn't think he could go back to his wife and his child. You know, he was giving an example. You need to give people space and time to grow, right? And sometimes it's good that you companion plant, right? Because you can grow together. They have some things that can help you, and you have some things that can help them, but you cannot have two of the same plants, depending on what type of plants. You cannot plant them too close together, i.e., which is why you can have a husband and a wife and children. Those are companion planting. That's companion planting, y'all. You cannot have two of the same. You cannot have man and man or woman and woman, right? Them crops are going to kill each other. And if you look at it in the physical realm, if you look at, some people may take offense to this if you're living this type of lifestyle, but you ain't got to go ham on people who are living homosexual lifestyles, because if you look at it from the point of gardening and understanding this, you don't have to say anything. They're going to choke each other out. They're not going to be able to reproduce. Man and man can't reproduce with one another. Woman and woman can't reproduce with one another, right? And eventually, if they're allowed to go on, they're eventually going to burn each other out. They're going to kill one another, or they're going to go to the grave not being able to reproduce, i.e. the seed never reproduces. All the seed that is inside of them goes back into the dirt. They're buried. Nothing ever comes of them, so they don't reproduce. They never fulfilled one of the basic life function of the seed that that they build up in them. So I'm just saying. So if you understand gardening, I'm telling you, gardening will help you understand so much about life all the way around, right? Whether it's spiritual, whether you're raising your own family, or simply just learning, try to do a garden and the principles and how you can see it all the way around. Even in religious circles, you can see this happening, right? So you have to give it time to grow. Everybody will progress. Everybody will grow. Some people don't like growth, right? And people that don't like growth, they like for you to stay just the way you are. But that doesn't lead to life. You can't just eat a bunch of seeds, right? You don't really get full eating a bunch of seeds. You really don't, right? You actually get fed. You get full by cultivating the seed and eating the fruit that the seed produces, right? So in its raw state, it's not really too nourishing. You have to wait till it get to it fulfills its purpose in order for it then to begin to reproduce the seed that is inside of it, right? So we got onto that by reading this sentence right here. Okay, let me see. Let me go back here. Okay, it says in 1 Corinthians 9, Paul is telling us we must become like the people around us, that is, infiltrate them. A prisoner that wrote to me a few years ago was dedicated to the name, appointed times, and so on, but he could not accept others who were different, even his own wife and child. I wrote to him about this. Even if it takes a lifetime, our place on this earth is to help those who need us the most. It is not our mission to isolate ourselves together only with those who are ready to follow and understand. We are sent to help those being called out. A bag of seed has to get out of the bag to be planted in the dirt, not stay together bunched up with the other seed. And it says, Yahuwah plants the seed through us, his vessels. We are the ambassadors of the coming reign of Yahuwah, right? And we're going to stop this right here. So I'm glad they started talking about this. I can talk about what I learned in gardening just a little bit more with y'all, right? So that's what I'm telling y'all. Learning how to garden while you're fixing your spiritual life and getting closer to Yah is probably one of the best things that you could ever do, right? Not only will you learn a new skill and you're going to learn how to create something beautiful, you're going to be able to sustain your family, grow your own food, right? Even if there was a famine in the land, you know how to grow food, right? And women get this, women got this, I ain't gonna say just women, because men do, because women can't give birth unless the man is there to give them the seed, right? You got the sower, and you got the one that help reproduce and help it grow, like, because one is not more important than the other, right? Men are not more important than women. Women are not more important than men. It's a companion plan, and both of them are needed in order to produce the desired effect, right? We can't have power without a couple components, right? You got a plug what the plug gonna do. We need a socket to plug it into for it to work. Okay, when you plug it into the socket, okay, boom, okay, where's the power, right? There is an internal source of power that has to be wired. So when you have these two outside components where we can see it, when you put them together, there needs to be lights, camera, action. If there's no lights, camera, action, there's a problem, right? So there's an internal problem. And this teaches you, going through the scriptures and learning how to do something with your hands, something that you can physically understand and manipulate with your own hands. It teaches you, I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied. It teaches you principles on how to cultivate your own life. But when you feel like you're stagnant and something is not working, it teaches you like this process of elimination. Okay, I've done this and I've done this. Why I still feel like this, or why is this happening? Okay, you did this and you did this. Okay, am I missing something? It literally teaches you to grow up mentally. It teaches you critical thinking skills on how to perfect it and how to literally heal your own life. Physician, heal thyself, right? Yo. All right, y'all, we gotta go. Y'all see my background is getting a little noisy. They up, y'all. But I enjoyed the reading for today. I'm glad we had like a little something I can manipulate and show you, right? So I'll put the link if y'all like that little, if y'all garden and y'all don't have one of those, I'll put the link when you get one. I got mine from Amazon. It was only a few bucks, but it's really, really helpful, especially when you're learning how to garden. Dana brought up a good point too. Might have to do container garden instead. Yeah, which is exactly, Dana, what we did. Y'all know you gave this comment earlier when I was talking about how my sister garden just flourished. Let me show you how good. I'm glad I ain't cut this up yet. Let me show you how good her garden flourishes, y'all. She bought me, because when our gardens reproduce, we'll be able to swap different and share fruits and stuff, right? So look, I'm like, well, damn it, I'm doing all this. I can only offer y'all like a tomato, possibly a cucumber. Here my sister come bearing gifts. Hold on, look, she going to everybody's house. Look, we got this. You want some of this too? Look, and I'm just like, hold on, I'm gonna show you. Here's what Alicia just bought over here the other day. Look, let me close this up. Those pages, it's 209. Look, here's what she bought over here. She got zucchini, right? See how big, when I see this, baby. Hold on, I'll give you something. When I say it seemed like her garden is touched by Yah himself, she got like a slice of heaven's fertile soil in her yard. Look, this is her zucchini, right? Look, I'm going to show you how big this is compared to my head. Look at that. See this one? Here's one. Here's another zucchini, right? Here's another one. Compared to my head, just so you can get a good gist of what we're seeing here. Compared to my head, y'all. See this zucchini? I'm going to show you this one. They be looking like sometimes premature babies, right? Look. Right here. Here's another one. Coming from, look. And I be seeing him like, what the crap? What is going on with my garden? Right? So I had to realize, but I also realized the sun, she gets full sun in her yard, right? There are no trees in her yard. I have this huge tree in our backyard, and it's shaded, so it doesn't get full sun like our front yard does, right? So not only that, she got green bell peppers, right? And she bought me a handful of jalapeno peppers and everything. And granted, I ain't gonna be able to eat none of this right now, so I'm cooking it for my family because I'm fasting. But also they ate up all of them. She bought some over some the green beans, or the pole beans, like, or you call them like fresh snap green beans, and they are huge, you know. But when you cook them, they are so good. The first year she bought some, which was last year, was the first year she grew some, and she brought them to the house. Got a big bag from her yard, right? Look, I go over there with one little lowly tomato. You want some of the first fruits of my harvest? And she got all this stuff. I'm just like, what am I doing? This is completely horrible. Like, so when I say I run into 9,999 problems, right? It's not a bad thing. You're not a failure. It's just some things you need to learn, right? There's some things that I learned quick and fast with this yard I got, right? So I said that because Dana, that's when I realized this year I may have to use containers, right? So y'all see a couple of videos that I did where I have grow bags, right? So the grow bags are working pretty well. So now I have some squash and stuff is growing. We put some blueberries in it and everything. And also we got one grow bag for one like watermelon seed right in the middle, because remember, they also grow, they spread out extremely in a wide like they need a lot of watermelons, need a lot of space to grow too, because they have vines that climb and they just run everywhere. Hold Hold on, baby. Hold on. Let me get it for you. Hold on. So that's a little example of some of those things. Hold on, baby. Hold on. But yeah, so you really learn a whole lot by gardening. You'll learn some spiritual principles a whole lot faster than you would just by actually sitting and just doing like a bunch of book work, right? You got people that are book smart, but you have those people who have on the job experience, like hands-on training. And I would not say you should companion plant them too. The bookworms and the experimenters, right? Those who actually have the on the job process, which is why a lot of times when you have people come out of school, the bookworms, you got to pair them up with those who have been out in the field and have been working. Okay, now we're gonna put them smarts into action with actual field experience, because you will realize a lot of times that sometimes what you read in the books, depending on who come here, baby, hold on, I get it for you. I'll get it for you in a second. Hold on. You will realize that a lot of times some of the things in the book doesn't quite line up with real life experience when you get out there in the field. So some people, you will have people going back and forth. The people that's actually out there in the field doing the work, it's like, no, that ain't gonna work. But then you got the book smarts on, this is what the book say, this is how you do it. There's a disconnect there, because you're living in two different worlds. So you're not really going to understand the book work for real. You have a basic understanding. You can do the formulas and stuff. But when you actually get out there in the field performing these things, you're going to realize, wait a minute, what's wrong? I thought I knew this stuff. No, you knew the book. You got the basic principles. Now you have to put this in place, right? And so when you actually get out there and actually do something with your hands and, put it into practice, you really get a more rich understanding of what's actually happening, how this really works. So with that being said, y'all, hold on, baby. He wanted to get that little what you call it right there in that bowl with the barbecue sauce. All right, but let me go ahead and end this, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead and feed him real quick.
Breakfast? I want to go breakfast. You want to go breakfast? You do?
Yep.
Huh?
Okay, so y'all, let's do the blessing real quick and go ahead and get out of here. Hold on, baby. This is Jackson. It's my second grandbaby.
Trey.
All right, y'all. So I hope y'all enjoyed the reading for the day, y'all. It is Sunday, July the 4th, 2021, day 197 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 866. We read Isaiah 37, 38, and 39, and we read Fossilized Customs. We started on page 203 all the way to page 209. All right, so we're about to do the blessing, which is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is the Nazarite vow. Man or woman can take it. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May Yahuwah bless us and keep us. May Yahuwah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. So that is it. I will see y'all back here tomorrow, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.